Says live on YouTube.
Trying. And recording. Okay. Should be live on YouTube and it should be recording.
Says live on YouTube.
Excellent. Trying. And recording. Now I have to close that YouTube video window or there'll be an echo of about 30 seconds. Okay. So it should be going live to YouTube and it should be recording locally as well. So as you know, just before we jump into the meeting, the FOI commission, the governor, through one of his executive orders, has loosened the restrictions, as it were, on the FOI, in that they're permitting virtual meetings, given all that's happening. But they do ask that you record it live, if you can, try to stream it, record it so that you can post it to your website within 7 days, and or have a transcript of it. If the local recording works, and it should, I've tested it a few times, we'll have that uploaded to the website in the next day or two. So there's no reason for a transcript. But we did also want to try to go live with YouTube just to see if we can make that work. Okay. Now, what I'm getting a little bit is some feedback from people on some of the other lines that aren't muted. So I'm going to go through and mute everyone on the line. And then board members are welcome to unmute for a conversation or what have you. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay. I make a joke often that I feel like Adam Sandler with in that movie Remote Control with the mute button here. But anyway, so we're going to record it. We're going to try to stream it live. We should be able to make it work. And since this is our first meeting, we thought that best way to do it is for us to really use it as an opportunity to share an update with all of you and open up for questions and answers and things and everything that's going on. Hello, Carl. Good. So with that, Katrina, if you would like to take it from there.
Sure. So I'll call to order the New Canaan Board of Education, our general and virtual meeting, March 23rd. We need to approve the minutes from the March 9th meeting. So if somebody could make a motion by lifting their hand.
So moved.
Penny, second. Carl, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Looks unanimous. Okay, next is to review and approve our agenda for this evening. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Penny, second. Julie, all in favor?
Aye. Unanimous.
Okay. Reports and recognition, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Lutzy, and he can maybe lead us off with our report from the cabinet members. But I just want to say thank you all for all the work you continue to do and your leadership through this time. It's been really, truly incredible, and the feedback continues to be positive. So thank you all for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's unprecedented times, and we're very lucky here to have just an amazing team working nonstop to solve problems as they arise. There's sometimes we can start to plan a little bit ahead, but we're always also engaged in solving the issue of the moment. But we've really been working hard to sort of plan, knowing and understanding what's happening today and anticipating what tomorrow and the end of the week and next week is going to look like. Fortunately, I'm on calls almost daily with the governor, with the commissioner, with CAPS, who's really stepped up as leaders in all of this. The information flow is a lot. And sometimes you're on a couple of calls over a couple of hours and you're hearing the same thing multiple times. Sometimes new information comes up as we go. So we thought that a good use of our time tonight would be for each of our cabinet members, who, as you know, has primary responsibility over a major operational area for the district, talk a bit about what's happening in that area, what we're learning, what we're doing, and be able to answer any questions that you might have. And then I thought that I could sum up at the end, and again, we're open to any questions. Our next meeting will probably have some action that we'll need to take and voting and, on the agenda, things like that. but, and I'll talk about that when I talk at the end. But tonight we thought, since it's the first time we've done this, it's best not to do that unless absolutely necessary. And we're in good shape with the things that are in front of us now. We've really been pretty singularly focused on solving the challenges and issues and all of what it takes to sort of lead our school community through all of this. So if that makes sense and good with you, Katrina, I will ask Darlene to talk a bit about human resources.
That's great. Thank you.
Great.
Unmute. There we go. Can everybody hear me? Hi, everyone. Well, Brian's right. A lot of these meetings have been taking place, and it is a new frontier for all of us, but the human resources team embraced the technology and we pushed through. We've been meeting daily to both troubleshoot situations with administrators who may call or staff as a team, and also to work proactively on issues that are coming up that we need to plan for in terms of the future. All of the HR services that we provide normally on a daily basis have been arranged remotely, including faxes and voicemails. So we have a variety of documents that get faxed into us, things like income verifications and certification issues and needs that need to be signed and sent to other places. All of those things are happening remotely. Everyone's voicemails have been turned over to them remotely, so they are answering staff questions, calls, concerns within the same day, pretty much. We also sent out an email last week that really was a forward of information that Cigna had sent us to staff on a variety of medical and health related issues that Cigna was giving Joanne and I information about. So in terms of services, so we sent that out to the staff last week. And as I said, we're working together proactively on planning for the future, because we can look at our calendar now and know that a month out, there are certain projects and issues that we need to plan for. Some that we do annually, and those are things like open enrollment, salary notifications, all things that require information to go out to everyone that works for the district, that we're planning now, so that we're assured that it gets done no matter how long we're out. And then the other issue is hiring. So we've always had clearly all of our resume and document information on applicants online, and we've posted whatever positions that we have had currently available online. And so that process is pretty solidly in place. And to go to the final stage of that, which is that a candidate meets with me, gets finalized through human resources. We actually did that last week. I was texting Brian and then we talked about it. We hired a Latin teacher for the high school, which is a very big deal. We have a retirement that we needed to fill, and the process went really smoothly. I apologized for meeting with the person in this way, but we had a lovely interview, and then I turned her over to Lisa, who did the benefits discussion, and we made arrangements to have whatever documents needed to be signed by the candidate done through, we just take a picture, send it, they sign it, and it gets returned. So I feel like we're really solidly in place for at least the next month in terms of keeping things moving, answering people's questions, and working on and planning for future projects. The team of 4 people that work with me have been wonderful. I know that everyone's working really hard, but they've been really good at creatively problem solving issues that come up. We go through emails daily on specific cases, and always end the phone call with the solution to whatever's come up. So I feel really confident, and I thank them every day. They're doing a wonderful job. That's it.
So at this point, if any board members have questions for Darlene around human resources or hiring or timing or what have you, feel free, and you can always ask at the end as well.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Jen.
So I know, Brian, that we've spoken about this a little bit, but what is the plan if staff gets sick, or like, can you just talk a little bit about what will happen and how the teachers will cover for each other? I don't know if that's more Jill. I'm not sure if that's.
Yeah, I think it is more Jill.
Okay,
So
all right.
we'll wait for that. But that's, as you know, as we've moved from phase 1 to phase 2, we've moved sort of from classroom replacement to a true distance learning.
Got
And
it.
as we've developed those plans, we really had to think about that redundancy. So Jill can speak a bit about what we're doing around that. And even in the operational areas, the non-classroom areas, we're thinking about that as well and making some
Right.
decisions. with that.
Do you have, I mean, can you tell us if any of our staff are sick? I mean, have it, or can you not tell us that?
No, we really wouldn't go into that, but as we look at the projections and with the expectations for locally and the region, I think it's fair to say that a percentage of our students, staff, families, throughout town will be testing positive at some point. So we had a scare on one of our teams with somebody associated with the team. We sent an email out to everyone who was involved in that game, just proactively, because we wanted people to know to make sure they were doing the right thing around social distancing. Then we got some good news that it was negative, so we shared that out as well. But in conversation with Dr. Pierce, Dr. Reed, Janet Reed, Jen, Edelson, our health director, all of them were really thinking that the right approach is for everyone to assume that they have it and to act as if they do, meaning that social isolation, being very careful about public surfaces, all that stuff. So if we all just treat it that way, that's the best way to stay safe. That makes sense?
Got it. Mhm.
Gianna? I can unmute from here. There you go. Go ahead.
So just a quick question. I know traditionally when we've done hiring of teachers, we've had them do sort of example classes or lessons. How are we working through that in this environment in the hiring decisions?
So a performance task has always been part of every interview process in the final stages. And we're having a conversation about how to do that. We're going to need to do that in this way if hiring is going to be taking place during this period. So we're going to have to figure that out.
So the Latin teacher was hired prior to.
The Latin teacher had gone through the whole process
Okay.
prior to us leaving school. So she had actually done that with a team of people.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
And some of the options we're talking about are often student teachers, when they're doing their student teaching, have to record themselves in that environment that then gets submitted to the university. So they may have a sample of them teaching that we could view. Also, this is my bias, I guess, as an English teacher, but if we had to, we could give them a writing sample about something, because clear writing is clear thinking, and really try to spend some time with them. I don't see us trying to do a virtual class with a candidate, just because logistics of that are so tough, and it would be hard to make it a meaningful experience for the kids, for them, or for us trying to observe. So we'll let you know where we go with it.
Thank you.
Katrina?
Just a question on enrollment. Have you seen any requests for new students, new families moving to the area, either temporarily or permanently in the last couple of weeks? And do we anticipate that to change?
We actually were having a conversation this past week about the fact that some people had moved in this last week. And so the schools had to plan for those students.
And in truth, they heard or read and saw about the distance learning program that's up and running. They said, we want to be a part of this. And we've tried our best to figure out how to integrate them in. It's a little bit easier K4 in a sense, because you're going into a classroom that's self-contained. as you get into middle school and high school, it's very challenging, but our counselors are figuring it out and doing their best to bring them in as quickly as possible.
Do you have a sense as to numbers of students?
For the new students?
Yeah.
It's really just a handful, and it's really mostly those that were in process. They they brought their final paperwork in, or they sent it to Laura,
I got it.
scanned it, and said, now that we're done, we want to start tomorrow, because we are hearing about this program. Somebody new coming in, I think they'd have a hard time getting the physical and the other kind of paperwork that's required for a brand new student to enroll from scratch.
Mhm.
But
Great, thank
I
you.
know we have at least one elementary and one high school student at a minimum. I think there may be a couple more.
Thanks.
Okay. Great. Then let's, again, anyone can ask any question of anyone, but now we'll go to Dr. Keating for our finance and operations.
All right, good evening, everyone. If you hear the sound of a little boy's voice, it's hard to keep a 4-year-old quiet, especially when you tell him not to do something. So I apologize ahead of time. So finance and operations started planning for the potential closure weeks ago, back in February. And we really spent a lot of time brainstorming, preparing trial runs of things, especially in the area of the business operations back a few weeks ago. So we really put a lot of effort into it. I think it's shown in the work that's been done, and I'm extremely proud of every single member of the various operational units in the board. So tonight I'm going to go through food service, transportation, technology in terms of the hardware, software aspects, facilities, and the business office operations. So top of the list, I'm going to start with food service because the work that they have done has been extraordinary. We're currently feeding 130 students per day on free and reduced lunches. We prepared them the first week, the Friday that we went out, we prepared the next week, last week's meals. And we're sending them out in 2 waves. On Monday, we send out Monday and Tuesday. And on Wednesdays, we send out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we're packing the meals into boxes, and they consist of milk, Apple and Eve juice box, a 16.9 ounce bottle of water, prepackaged cereal bowls they're getting, the ZZ nutrition bars, Mott's applesauce or fresh fruit, whatever we can procure from our purveyors, and the Mott's fruit snacks and chips. And we're also putting cutlery, prepackaged cutlery with a napkin inside the box. The production is amazing just to see it. Brian's been down there a few times. Last week on Thursday and Friday, they packed 2,800 meals. And if you go into the servery at the high school, it's just a sea of meals on tables. It's truly amazing. Michelle and her team, they've just done an extraordinary job. So I'm very, very proud of their work. They hope to package this week another 6,000 meals, and that should get us close to the end of the year, providing we can get everything in from the purveyors. And so we have a truck coming in from Cisco tomorrow and Thurston on Wednesday, and hope to get everything complete in anticipation that we might be out till the end of the year. If we're not, we can still use the product. It's not going to go to waste. It is shelf stable, they call it. So it's not going to expire anytime in the near future. On top of this, when we're finished with all the meals, Michelle has a project to do. We are switching our POS system from Horizon to a product called Titan. And both Tracy and Michelle will be working on that with the staff. So they're going to be working remotely as well. Moving on to transportation, which is led by Roy and his team. They've been truly amazing. They will do whatever we ask them to do. They offer to do whatever we want them to do. They're delivering all of the meals directly to the homes of the children twice a week, as I mentioned, Mondays and Wednesdays. And they go into the school and they literally load their vehicles individually so that they have the social distancing. There's 2 drivers on each run, and they're running 7 routes to deliver the food. Takes about an hour to an hour and a half for each route. They do have protective equipment where they need it, but for the most part, they're leaving the meals right on the steps or at the front door of where the students live. So they're using very good precautions with that. They're also supporting the needs of our special needs students. We've had a few students that we've had to transport in the last week. I'm not sure, Bill could probably speak more about that, about how long that's going to continue. But whatever we need to do, we'll do. He's delivered educational supplies to one student last week, and we're prepared to do that as we move forward in the event that some of our kids just don't have supplies that they need to do the assignments that the teachers are giving them. You probably heard about the big yellow buses driving around town last week. A lot of kids thought the school was called back into session. They didn't know about it. But actually what they were doing is test running the routes for a potential change in start and end times for next year. When they started to do the testing over at Saks, they couldn't really do that anymore. So they're not doing it. You won't see yellow buses around town until perhaps that site is no longer needed. And then we'll start again if we can. So all in all, transportation has just been a remarkable partner for everybody, supporting everybody through this process. When we started planning, technology was probably the first area, it was the first area that I went to and started working with Ian and the cabinet. You know, we had brainstormed all the things we would need to put in place, but we wanted to be sure that we had the resources that were necessary to successfully launch and maintain the e-learning environment for our students. And so a lot of work had to be done to just really investigate what we had in terms of platforms for the kids to use and the teachers to use. And then our inventory. We do have a really good inventory system now, and we were able to quickly identify where we had laptops, the capacity of the laptops. And then we reached out to our staff and then to our students to find out who needed assistance in that area. And we have 103 staff members who we issued laptops to, and 110 students that have devices that we issued. We have one staff member who didn't have Wi-Fi in her home, so we provided a hotspot for that person, and 3 students that did not have it, which we also provided hotspots for. We have our DTS technicians. They're working remotely, but full-time remotely. And in the last week, they've cleared out 78 work orders, and they have 103 work orders, and they have 78 left to do for this week already. So overall, it's been, I don't want to say seamless, but it's been very close to it. The technology's been up and working, and where it hasn't been, the technicians have been able to support the staff and the students, and it's been working fairly well. Facilities, the guys, as you know, really cleaned the buildings very well the weekend before we went out. We wanted the students to come back into a very, very clean building, which they did. And then throughout the days they were cleaning, as the students were in the building, any kind of surfaces like hand railings on the stairs or doorknobs or anywhere where the kids would frequently touch, they were going around the buildings to keep everything as clean as they possibly could. Since we've been out, the custodians have been busy with special projects, the biggest of which is they got a big jump start on spring cleaning, which hasn't been done in probably decades, the way they're doing it. We rented some extra dumpsters and are purging some very old equipment and supplies that are no longer needed. And it's working out very well. They're also doing high dusting, wiping down light fixtures, doing the kind of things that they do in the summer to prepare for a full school year. They're doing that now. And the maintenance guys are working on preventative maintenance. They've gone through a good number of work orders, probably 50 or so in the last week, which is a lot for maintenance because they're usually complicated jobs. They've been recalibrating doors and locks, and they're doing a lot of light replacements to LEDs in the last week. Mike, our plumber, has been doing a lot of faucet retrofits and work in his area. And our HVAC mechanic is going through a lot of equipment, cataloging it for the preventative maintenance that we hope to get to before the kids return. Overall, we're keeping out as many contractors out of the buildings as we can because we really don't want anybody coming in to our space. But in the event we had an elevator safety issue, and we did have to bring in an outside contractor, but it would only be for safety reasons that would bring anybody into the buildings. As far as the business office go, Tracy and her team, they've been remarkable as well. We did a lot of test runs because, of course, we wanted to make sure that we could process payroll remotely. and do it successfully and smoothly. And so before we went out, we did a payroll run that week we went out, and it was completely done remotely. It is more time consuming. The staff is used to working with 2 large screens and really just being able to see their numbers and work on their worksheets with a lot of fluidity and speed. And when you're working on a laptop with those kind of numbers, it's a little difficult. But they're doing it. They were going to come in this week and they decided against it for various reasons. So they're just going to run payroll remotely tomorrow and Wednesday, which is great. We've been doing purchasing remotely. We haven't purchased a lot, but we have been purchasing in the area of technology and facilities. And so all of that is going fairly seamlessly. Our accounts payable person has processed 2 weeks of accounts payable and done very well. One thing she does also is our facilities billing, and we've decided to hold on our facilities billing for the time being until people get back to normal. I didn't think it was a great idea to start sending people bills in this time. And so overall, we're just really hanging in there. I'm so proud of the staff. I appreciate everything they do. I know the whole cabinet has been very complimentary to their good work. And I think that we're able to maintain the operation and move forward. Kind of.
Great. Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Questions? Gianna, you're trying to unmute. Go ahead. There you go.
So it may be a little premature, but are you getting a sense for some of the capital projects that we wanted to do this summer, if those will be able to stay on track, or maybe a little early to make a decision, but just wanted to get any sort of updates on that.
Sure. The town had asked us to look at capital, actually tax funded capital projects that were on the books already, not what's in the pipeline for 2021. On Friday, we did that. We went through the listing, and they're looking at ways to perhaps reserve some funds, additional funds from what they currently have. And we went through that list, and there was stuff that that we can defer, such as painting and things like that. But as far as our projects go, this is like a gift of time too for us in a kind of an odd way, because we're always planning for our summer at this time of year in between operating all the buildings. And it's pretty intense, the work at this time of year. And we're starting to get into our bid specs. We're doing a number of things that are helping us prepare for any kind of, the funding that we receive this summer. So I think we're in a good place to do any project we have funding for.
And do we have any sort of big, as you look at sort of the line items in our financials, are there any like significant additional expenses that are troubling as a result of what's happening right now that will lead us to be concerned for the end of the year?
Not at this point, Deanna. One of the things that is somewhat of a savings is the fact that we're not operating our buildings. We're leaving them unoccupied right now. So there's a lot of operational costs. All the equipment and all of the motors and mechanics that go into operating a building are on setback. So I expect that our energy conservation, energy billing is going to be reduced by a significant amount of money. Now, if there's something that happens between now and who knows where this whole thing.
And did we have to buy more tech? I mean, I know probably Wi-Fi hotspots and things like that. We had to purchase things for that, but like laptops and iPads, was there a lot of purchasing, or do we have all of that in inventory?
Yeah, we had the inventory.
Okay, great.
So we did have to spend on hotspots. We tried to be as economical as we could be. The Verizons are like $20 a month. They're not that expensive. But yeah, we do need some boosters. We're going with Kajit. I think it's a Kajeeeg.
Yeah.
And we're going to get some boosters for that, for some people who really need it. But I mean, overall, maybe 10,000, total for everything.
Thank you.
Penny. Oh, you have to unmute, Penny. I can do it for you if you want.
Self-sufficient here. Okay.
All
Can you hear
right.
me? Great.
Penny.
So I was just wondering, are we doing any health screening of the people that are in our building, or the staff that are preparing the meals?
No, what we've done is we've issued PPE for them. So they have a mask, they have gloves. They're frequently washing their hands. We're keeping them at social, the social distancing, which is not an easy task when you're trying to assemble boxes of food. But they're doing it. They're doing it. I've been down there many times, over the last couple of weeks, or several times. I shouldn't say many times, but several times when they were there. And the first day was not easy, keeping them to not cluster. They like to be close to one another, work with one another, and they do that all the time. But we're not taking temperatures or doing anything like that. What we're telling them to do is stay home. If they don't feel good, they're going to get paid.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Brennan.
Sorry, delay. I just want to say, what you're doing from afar, and for the people assembling food and food boxes and driving it around is absolutely just phenomenal. To think about what's being accomplished and managing, the district, really for all of you, from from your homes and sometimes coming into the office, and it's just it's incredibly difficult. So appreciate all the work, and it's frankly amazing that we were able to pull it all off. So thank you for the great work.
Well, thank you. I have wonderful people that work for me and with me, and they deserve all the credit. I couldn't be prouder of their work, but thank you.
Great team.
Carl. Go ahead, Carl. Oh. We see you, but we don't hear you. But I don't see that you're on mute either. Let's see. Do you have a mic on this computer that you're videoing from? Doesn't show up here if you do.
Can he type his question in the chat box?
Yeah, you can.
Brian, his phone is on mute. He's in twice.
Gotcha. As we said, patience. I'm looking, I don't see it. Oh, there you are. Okay, let me unmute your phone. Carl, give that a try.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah,
Gotcha.
sorry. I dialed it on my phone because the sound is much better, and then I'm on video here.
It's not really fair to test us on our first night using this by, that's a little more advanced than I'm ready for, but go ahead.
Okay. I've been doing a lot of Zooming, and I found that this is the best way for my home setup.
Gotcha.
I have a question on the technology. So obviously there's a lot of platforms in use, Schoology, Google Classroom, et cetera. The pricing for that doesn't change, even though the volume of use has gone up quite dramatically here in the last week or so?
No.
Sure. It's actually, your question's a great lead into Jill and the digital distance learning platform and everything that we're doing. At a high level, Google Classroom, that's a tool that's provided by Google to K-12 schools. So almost everywhere is using it all at once, but no, there's no change in cost there because there is no cost. And with Schoology, we're really building on the capacity that we had. So I believe we have the licenses, and we're really focused on not teaching people new things going into this, but really leveraging what they already know. So middle school, for instance, is pretty much across the board Google Classroom. Although ultimately our goal is to get them all in Schoology over time, because they hadn't really been introduced to it. We wanted to go deeper on what they already know instead of beginning with something brand new. But Jill, with that, why don't I transition over to you?
Good evening, everyone. So good to see everyone. So Carl, just to follow up with your question, and then I'll just kind of lead into everything that we're doing with e-learning. So there are many platforms that we are exploring as far as softwares. So like something like IXL is now offering IXL for free until the end of the school year. So there are many companies that are kind of offering some of their services to school districts for free. The platforms are remaining the same. And I'll talk a little bit about what the different platforms are at all of the levels, but then some of the software that we may only have had at the middle school, we're now able to open up at the elementary level because it's a free software. And so we're availing ourselves to some of those services that are out there. But first of all, I would like to just compliment the administrators, the department chairs, the coordinators, and teachers for taking on the challenges of e-learning. From the pre-planning stages to now, everyone has approached it positively. Everyone has led with, yes, we can do this. Teachers have learned new technology and worked diligently to pull units and lessons together in less than 2 weeks. When e-learning started on March 13th, only 2 days after we closed, I couldn't have been more proud to be a part of the New Canaan school community. Although there were glitches here and there, students were eager to log on and teachers were so excited to see their efforts come to life. However, we learned through our experiences and based on feedback from staff, students, and parents, we've made adjustments as we've moved into week number 2. We quickly learned that what we normally ask students to do in one class session was taking significantly longer. Students needed more time to read, to watch a video, and to complete the assignment. A lesson that would normally take 1 day may now take 2 or even 3 days for the students to complete. So at the high school, we adjusted the schedule to give students more time to learn and to apply their learning. So starting today, we move to a block schedule. There are 4 periods a day, and each period is 60 minutes long. We also thought it would be important to give everyone a break from their screens, and we instituted a 30-minute lunch break. And then at the end of the day, we've instituted an independent reading time. So we are still exploring ways that students can do activities offline and then bring it back into the screen. So we're very conscious of that and continuing to monitor that. The teachers are really working hard to connect with their students through videos as well as live classes. And most of them are using Schoology, although there may be a few that are still using Google Classroom because when we announced that we were moving to e-learning, they may have only had 1 or 2 of their courses set up in Schoology. So they kept those 2 courses set up in Schoology, and then they quickly went back to what they were most comfortable with and what they've used in the past, just to make sure that all the kids had a platform. But I would have to say a good majority of them are in Schoology. There's a lot of training going online with the teachers as far as how to conference, how to do live classrooms. And so they are really spending that time that they have some PL opportunities to really explore all of that and really think about that. Last week, I did engage in a conversation with all the department chairs as well as the high school administrators to really start thinking about what will they do when one of their colleagues gets sick. And so they really are spending time thinking about those classes that multiple teachers teach, looking at their units of study and really trying to collaborate with one another so that anybody could take over Global History 1 or an English sophomore class. So they're really trying to collaborate and spend time and have those conversations within their departments. And hopefully, if need be, they'll be ready to jump in. At Saks, we also adjusted the schedule by making the start time 8:20 for 7th and 8th graders and 9 o'clock for 5th and 6th graders. The teachers have worked closely with the curriculum coordinators to identify those priority standards in all of their units. And the departments are really collaborating and even sharing video lessons across grade levels. So you might have one English teacher, but the students may be watching a mini lesson that was completed by a different English teacher. And it's a way that they are trying to stay in pace with one another Also, once again, taking into consideration if one of them was to get sick, somebody else could easily get into their Google Classroom and continue that learning on. The TIs, the technology integrators, are really working hard to train staff so that more videotaped lessons and even live group sessions can take place. The teachers in the middle school are all using Google Classroom as their platform. Believe it or not, some of our biggest challenges have been at the elementary level, particularly in grades K through 2. Grades 3 and 4 are using Google Classrooms, and teachers have adjusted accordingly to give students more time to complete their assignments. The curriculum coordinators are working really hard with those grade levels to assure that those units are consistent across those grade levels, identifying what priority standards they should be teaching to. So this week, we're in the process of kind of finishing up some of the units that the kids had started before they left. And then as we move into the next few weeks, they'll be introducing some of their newer units. However, in grades K through 2, because students do not have a Gmail account, they don't have Google Classrooms. So the communication's been going from the teacher to parent through emails. And certainly the first couple of days, it was a lot of clicking around and in and out of a variety of sites. But at this time, it's been streamlined, and there are now like templates with the day's plans and hyperlinks to where they need to go. So we heard that really loud and clear those first couple of days from parents, that this was a real struggle going in and out of all these different sites to get to where they needed to be. We also recognize that the students really miss the interaction with their teachers. We know this is at all levels. The kids just light up when they get to see their teachers on the screen, or even if it's a videotape. But we definitely were hearing that the elementary school children really wanted to see their children, their teachers. So this week, we're hoping that parents will see more videos and even some invites to some group chats by the elementary staff. I think part of what we're trying to do, and part of why we have the early release day coming up, is to try to give them more training in that technology. So on Wednesday, we'll have an early release for the elementary school students, and for SACs, it will be on Thursday. And part of that professional learning is really for them to explore some of the technology platforms and to try to figure out what's the best platform to use if they wanted to do a live lesson, what's the best platform if they wanted to videotape, and then to roll it out to their students. Once again, taking into consideration that it's hard to just videotape something and send it electronically. They have to download it to YouTube, then they have to kind of clean it before they send it out with a software called Watchkin. So there's a lot of pieces that go into play. And then also we're trying to look at a software for K2. We're looking at a Seesaw, which is a company that's offering a free subscription from now until the end of the year. We've been in communication with a couple districts that have been using Seesaw for a while. And this will be like a platform for kids and for parents. And we're hoping that if this works, it would give the students a little bit more independence, because we're hearing that it's a lot of parents working with the kids and trying to figure out the material and trying to work through all those lessons. But we're hoping with some of the videotaping that teachers are going to do of instruction, some of the live lessons, and if we can roll to a new platform, that might be helpful. Obviously, we're really cautious about moving to anything new, so we're vetting it really carefully now, with piloting it out with a few students and parents and teachers, just to get a sense of it and how intuitive it is, and to see if it will work. So we really appreciate everyone's patience, for this truly has been a new experience for all of us. And we spend a lot of time collaborating, communicating in group chats, answering questions, to try to deliver the best program for our students. So I guess at this point, I'll take some questions. We know that state testing has been canceled for the rest of the year. The state of Connecticut had a waiver that the federal government obviously approved. So there's no Smarter Balanced assessments, no Next Generation Science assessments, no Connecticut SAT assessments. So that's kind of been removed, and I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you. So I sent an email earlier this week just thanking everyone for how phenomenal the rollout of this has been. I have a 5th grader at Saks and a 9th grader at the high school, and both of them were, immediately busy and engaged. I will say that the feedback that you received with regard to the high school is exactly what I received from my 9th grader. He was extremely busy. I mean, he was on there at 8:20 and wouldn't finish till 4. And he said it was actually like a harder, more effortful day, though not as much got accomplished. So I also commend you for kind of recognizing where things needed to change as well. I did have a question where, so just as you said, my son is on, everyone's using Schoology, my 9th grader and the 5th grader, Google Classrooms. The 9th grader's day seems much more scheduled, like he's actually going to classes, throughout the day, meeting kind of live, whereas Augie, my 5th grader, he kind of gets his stuff actually the night before and starts cranking it out, and he seems to be kind of done by 10 a.m. because he just, blasted it out on his own time. What makes for kind of that difference as to how the day is scheduled for the 2 different age groups? Is it the technology platforms?
So I think sometimes with the 5th graders, so we've tried to encourage the teachers not to post until 8 a.m. But I think some of them, we still have to get to the training to them to show them how to go about doing that in their Google Classroom. So we know that there's a lot of them that try to do their planning at the end of the day and get their whole Google Classroom all set up and ready to go. So they are supposed to be posting at 8 a.m. So that will be part of the training that we'll work through on Wednesday with them to show them how they can get it all set up and then not actually release it until the following day. We do try to encourage them to stick with a schedule. And we noticed that some of the teachers this week are going to try to explore some live sessions, which would put them back onto a schedule so that they would have to be there for their science class to actually watch the live lesson and be part of that. We're seeing some debates happening in writing in 5th grade in particular, where they're going to be doing some research for 2 days, and then they're going to actually come on and do some debating with each other during Thursdays and Fridays. So we're trying to work through all of that so that we can have them stay more on a schedule. But we understand that some of them are going through those lessons a little bit quickly. So it's trying to get them to slow down and trying to get the teachers to give them that feedback so that they can be a little bit more reflective about their work and before they're turning in those assignments. I think we also noticed in the 7th and 8th graders, it was really fascinating because when we opened up the Google Classrooms, we had the teachers, they might have a child in 6th period who's now emailing them when they're in 2nd period. So then they've slowly been releasing at different times their periods so that they're not opening it up during 2nd period and trying to get it done. And meanwhile, the teacher's working with the 2nd period kids, but it's 6th period that's emailing the English teacher questions about the assignment. So we're trying to work through all of that, but and we appreciate all the feedback because it just helps us to continue to improve.
Deanna.
So thanks, Jill. I'm sure it's been a very busy few weeks. So please communicate to all the teachers, the appreciation of the board for all their efforts. Because I too, not having anyone in the district anymore, I'm hearing such positive feedback. So thank you very much. 2 questions. One, how are we handling, how is the AP testing for our high schoolers being handled, especially given sort of the comment that, it's taking more class periods to, accomplish the same amount of material that would have been done in the past. So I guess that would be the first question. I'll ask you the second. Yeah.
Jill, do you want me to share the information I received just today from College Board? And
Sure.
Sure. So College Board is looking at how can they change this program so that it works for kids, recognizing what's going on nationally. So what they're looking to do, what their guidance was to essentially freeze the content at the end of March and use April to continue sort of deepening the understanding of that up to that content, right, that had already been covered. And then they're changing the test itself to be a 45-minute online assessment that students can take from home. There are a lot of details that still have to be worked out around security and other things with all of that, but the College Board has been working on this for a couple of weeks now, and they're trying to figure out just how can they keep some fidelity with the program and give the students the opportunity that they've been working so hard towards all year. So that's what they're looking to do. So freezing the content will help based on that ability to cover. And then we anticipate that our teachers will be able to do some creative lessons with kids throughout April in preparation for May.
Okay, great. And then the other question is around grading at the high school level. You know, having 2 college students, Brian, you know this as well, a lot of the universities are now moving to pass-fail and some alternative ways of grading in this different environment. And I just wanted to kind of understand sort of what the thinking is at the district level around grading.
Sure. Jill, I'll take this one too, and you're welcome to jump in. I've been in conversations with CAPS, with Tom Mooney, with the commissioner, with others about this, and really with the Southern Fairfield County Superintendents Association, which is the group of, I think it's 15 or so districts right through Southern Fairfield County that we meet, we network together and talk together. We've also been talking to districts in New York because, as you know, it hit theirs before it hit us. So at least one premier district in Westchester County has just recently gone to pass-fail on their distance learning program. For us and in the region, and what we're doing is really talking to each other together and looking for the state to hopefully provide some guidance for us. In Connecticut, the statute simply says that every Board of Ed must have a policy about grading, but doesn't necessarily say anything beyond that. So it's generally always been a local decision, but we also know that whatever decision we make locally will impact all of our kids, not just here in New Canaan, but as they look in colleges, as you say, and things like that. So one of the things we've done is schools within our DERG and in Southern Fairfield County, we've all agreed that prior to a district making a decision, we'll sit at the table or at the Zoom conference, whatever it is, and talk through what we're thinking. Tom Mooney's working with CAPS. I was on a conference call with them for a couple of hours today around a couple of things I'll talk about, but grading is one of sort of 4 big areas that the commissioner asked CAPS for some guidance around. And that guidance includes asking the commissioner to review, leaving the statute alone because it does give local control for the Board of Ed, but to really look at what's happening around us in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, here in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and to give guidance for districts to follow. What we've done internally too is Cindy Rivera and our guidance team and Sue Carroll have been reaching out to all of their contacts at the universities and asking them about the impacts. And right now the timing, the universities say it would never be a good time, but there could never be a worse time for all of this to happen for them because they're really still focusing on their incoming class. But as we talk to them, and these are all personal connections they have through the work they've done over the years, their feedback really has been the colleges understand what we're going through. They're going to be flexible and receptive to whatever decisions the districts make. They're not going to disadvantage students in their application because of what's happening with this. So that's a good thing to hear, I think, because it helps us to really be focused on making the best decision for our kids and understanding all of that. And Cindy is putting together a meeting of all of the counseling chairs in the DERG. I think on Wednesday morning, she has that scheduled. I think I saw in an email. And they'll do the same thing and they'll talk through what they're all hearing from all of their contacts. And then she'll give us some feedback and some advice.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense that that it's great she's meeting with all of them because, we probably get looked at as a group anyway when our kids are applying. So, if we all sort of take a similar approach, it will benefit everyone.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And it even goes beyond just us here in this DERG, but we want to look over in New York and look at Scarsdale, Chappaqua, Bedford. What are the school districts all around us doing as well? These are high performing districts. So I am also speaking with the Tri-State Consortium, Marty, and getting some feedback around what other districts are doing. And I have some friends that are in New York in different spots, and that's how I'm sort of staying plugged into that. It's a difficult decision. I mean, if you are to change, then you have to talk about GPAs and scholarships, and I mean, there's all kinds of things that flow from one decision, around grading. And so we want to make sure that there's no rush right now. So we really want to look at it and think about it, and see what kind of guidance we receive from the commissioner and the governor as well.
Thank you.
Julie.
Jill, I'm just wondering what kind of feedback you're getting from the teachers themselves. Obviously, I know you guys have been getting feedback from parents and you've made adjustments through that, but what's the sense you're getting from the teachers? I mean, I'm sure, they're exhausted too. And, just as a parent, getting the daily emails at the high school from Bill Egan is such a boost. And I know that the administrators are trying, hard to keep everyone, boosted. But what feedback are you getting from teachers and how the various platforms are working and that kind of thing?
So I think part of the message that we've been sending to the teachers is that it's okay to slow down, that it's taking children a longer time to learn, and that they have to adjust their pacing, and that in order to sustain it, they have to also slow themselves down in order to sustain it and to really begin to work collaboratively. So really come together. And so where you see some real creative things happening is, if it's an English seventh grade English, where the coordinators are helping to take a unit of study, break apart that unit of study and say, okay, so these are the priority standards. These are the things that we really want to make sure we hit within this unit of study. Now let's talk about the different mini lessons for instruction purposes that we'd want to deliver to the kids. And now let's all kind of chip in. So you'll do your mini lesson and then we can post it, and then anybody can use that mini lesson. So it's kind of dividing up that work and allowing that to happen. So the time that we build in those early release times for the elementary and SACs are really helpful because it helps them to slow down. It helps them to come together. It helps them to plan. It helps them to collaborate. It helps them to kind of experience what the technology can do for them and how it can help to transform that learning for them. But really the message that Brian and I have been really sending to them, it's okay to slow down and take a breath. And I think also by the schedule that we put into the high school, it's allowing them that time to kind of look at the work and offer authentic feedback to the students and also to collaborate as a department.
Yeah, with the distance learning program, and I put this in a letter that went out to the staff. We have the three main goals, right? It's certainly goal number one is to continue to progress intellectually, to be engaged in meaningful academic pursuit. But secondly, it's also to remain connected to their teacher, to their peers, to their schools. We've got such amazing school climates and cultures, everything in our schools, and all of what we do to build that environment. So we want to make sure that the experience keeps our kids that sense of identity as students at South or East or West or SACs or the high school. And the third is to provide a structured, meaningful experience for kids so that they have a purpose with their days, right? As they're going into each of the days as we go through this. So it's not just goal one, right? It's not purely just academic only. It's really about, taking this distance learning program and making sure those relationships remain strong, and that kids are, on the EI side, the emotional intelligence piece. So I think that once our teachers heard that message as well, they really allowed them to put more of themselves in there and be more authentic with kids and to, sort of learn how to use this medium in a way where they can still be themselves and kids can be themselves. So I think that we're moving along that continuum very, very well.
Right. Thanks.
I'm not sure if this is maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but just a question on the school psychologists. How are we using any kind of tele therapy services, and how are we providing supports to all of our students? And are we seeing an increased need as we go through the longer duration? Any comments on that?
Well, great question and another great transition. Why don't we transition over to Bill to talk to us a bit about the special ed department and all the great work they're doing there.
Okay, if I could just add one comment to Jill and all the teachers. I just, want to echo some of what's already been said, but just the level of positivity that the teachers are keeping. And it begins from the morning when we have as Julie said, the boost, the video messages from Bill Egan and Dave Gussich, and I'm sure the elementary school principals. They really are an amazing way to start the day. And I think it kind of sets the tone for learning, and it's just provides a sense of routine and structure. And I think it's making a huge difference, and we're serving our community and all of our children, very well each day. So thank you for that. And I just hope the teachers know how much they're appreciated. They're really making such a difference right now.
I received a couple emails, and the emails that I've received from teachers have been so amazing. I mean, one was just talking about how proud they are to just work in this district right now. And they just are beaming. And as much as the work is so hard for them right now, because it's such new territory for them, they're just so proud. So they appreciate all of your ongoing support as well. And they really are dedicated to what they're doing for our students and for our school community.
Thank you.
Just Katrina, just to touch on your question about the psychologists and social workers, we are delivering services to students using a variety of platforms, from Zoom to Google Meets or Hangouts, and even over the phone. So we are doing some teletherapy with students. At this point, I don't think we're seeing a significant increase, but we're still early in the game with this. As things progress and we move on, we may start to see an increase in the need for some services. But as with all the different services we're offering, our goal is to try and come as close to implementing what's in the IEP as possible. Well, as you can imagine, the special ed component for this distance learning is a significant challenge for us. Our goal is to meet all the requirements in IEPs through distance learning. It's a tremendous challenge for us to take on here as a district. In fact, many districts across the country, and if you've been keeping up on the news, they were paralyzed by the thought of what are we going to do with special ed, and they chose not to do anything, which was, in our opinion, for the district was a bad choice. We moved ahead right away. And in fact, this weekend, the U.S. Department of Education clarified, to districts that it's not okay to use the concern about special ed and not being able to fully implement IEPs as an excuse not to do distance learning. Everybody should be doing distance learning. And they've come up with guidance that says that schools must ensure, to the greatest extent possible, which is the key term there, the key phrase, to the greatest extent possible, that each student with a disability can be provided with the special education and related services identified in the student's IEP. And that phrase is basically an admission that given these extenuating circumstances that we find ourselves under, it's virtually impossible for any district across the country to provide all the services that are in each student's IEP in the same manner that they were being provided prior to going to the distance learning. It's similar to our acknowledgement that distance learning is not the same as being in the classroom and having that direct contact with teachers. It's just not, and it can't be. What our job is to do the best we can for all the students that we have in our charge. And additionally, the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Education also came out and said that, yes, the technology that we have available today is an effective way to meet the needs of all students, including students with disabilities, especially during this time of extended closure, where districts are able to set up comprehensive distance learning programs. And that's exactly what we've been able to do. So with that guidance and the belief that ethically, it's our responsibility to educate kids. We wanted to keep the continuity of education. We've moved forward and developed the most comprehensive plans we could for all students through distance learning. And the staff, the special ed staff throughout the entire district has been amazing in what they've been able to do. The creativity has been mind-boggling what they've been able to accomplish. You know, to start this out, there was a huge push of technology. We had to get some technology out to students. Some of the technology they relied on solely in the classroom. We had to get those out to houses. And, you know, hats off to Ashley Tremblay, first of all, as the AT specialist in the district, the assistive technology specialist. She's done a phenomenal job making sure that all students have the technology they need to be able to access the curriculum, and finding new ways for students to access the curriculum. So she's done a phenomenal job with that. And Roy, as Joanne said, Roy has done a great job of shuttling different pieces of equipment from the school to people's homes when they've needed it. You know, when we first started this, we were thinking, oh, it's a 2-week window. And so some equipment was left in the school by families and teachers, and said, oh, we might need this. So Roy was very accommodating, you know, to help us get that equipment out to students, which has been awesome. Special ed teachers have worked to set up Google Classrooms. They've used Schoology for their classrooms, especially at the high school and middle school. They set up classes for their content areas and also the Learning Center classes. Special ed teachers have joined classrooms as teachers in different subject areas, and they've been able to virtually kind of do some push-in work with students while they're in another teacher's Google Classroom. They can support students, TAs can support students in that way, which has been phenomenal. Even OT, speech, and PT, they've been extremely creative in how they've been able to virtually kind of deliver services. They've created their own websites. They've uploaded videos for students to follow. They send activities home for students to do with their parents or by themselves if they're able to, if they're older. So they've been incredibly creative with how they're addressing this. And as I said, the psychologists and social workers have also put together some great ways to try to reach out and meet the needs of students. The biggest challenge has been the students with the highest level of need, who, you know, e-learning is not a platform you would normally start to think about as, well, I can reach these kids through an e-learning platform. You know, and when we first started to do the distance learning, we had a small number of students and staff that were still working with each other on a one-to-one basis. Staff would either go into the homes, or sometimes the staff would meet at the launch space downtown, some limited time in the community. We set that one-to-one instruction up in alignment with the recommendations of the health director. They were okay with it at that stage. So we spent last week, we actually started Friday before last week, the first day of distance learning, we started doing some one-to-one contact. And then throughout the entirety of last week, we had these students working with some staff on a one-to-one basis. And then again, you know, at the recommendation of the health professionals in consultation to the district, we decided that Friday was going to be the last day, and we shifted everybody over to the distance learning. And it's been, you know, you wouldn't think that we'd be able to come up with ways to reach these students, but it's been phenomenal. I mean, I had some pictures this morning of a teacher at the high school who works with probably 3 of the most involved cases in the entire district. And every morning they would have a morning meeting, and they go through activities that they would do in the classroom. And they had set it up where they had the speech pathologist, a classroom teacher, and one TA were virtually in a classroom working with a group of 3 or 4 students and going through the morning meeting and doing all the activities. She sent me pictures, and it was so heartwarming to see that these kids were engaged in the learning process, you know, through distance learning. Is it perfect? No, but, you know, it's phenomenal. And the real benefit of that to me is those students who most need that contact with their teachers, they're able to see the teachers, the TAs that they work with every day, the related service providers that they're able to work with every day. They don't lose that connection, which for these kids is incredibly important. You know, if we went 3 weeks or 4 weeks or longer without that connection, it would be a tough road to hoe to come back to, you know, into the classroom environment and learning environment for these kids. So it's been phenomenal what we've been able to do with these kids. You know, if we switching over to the more mundane or clerical parts of the special ed world, the PPT process, as soon as we realized we were going to be closing, the special ed administrators and I, we worked together to establish protocols to start doing virtual PPTs. We were using Google Hangouts and teleconferences and Zoom. I think most people now are preferring the Zoom method. It seems to be the preferred method. So we did PPTs all last week, which was good up until the end of the week. And we did them successfully, but we decided, or I decided, I guess, for the cabinet, we decided as a group that we were going to halt PPTs on the advice of the board attorney and the State Department of Education, because we're kind of waiting for some further guidance to clarify how to go about certain PPTs in certain circumstances. I think what we're going to end up doing is going back to exactly what we were doing, because I think we were doing a great job, a phenomenal job of carrying out these PPTs. But with an abundance of caution, we wanted to say, okay, let's just wait and see what they say. We're probably going to end up coming right back to where we were, but let's hold off and see what the guidance is going to be from the state. It was supposed to be released today or tomorrow. We don't have it yet. The state tends to release this guidance around the special ed. It tends to come out at night. I haven't checked my email. But we'll take a look at that guidance. We'll talk to the board attorney. We'll put together any changes that we need to do in our process, and then we'll continue to go forward with that. I've also, one of the things that I've started to do is I've spearheaded some meetings with the DERG directors so that we can get ourselves on the same page. We have an understanding of what types of PPTs we're going to handle, how we're going to handle them, just so that everybody's on the same page, and also kind of coordinate around what they're doing and what ideas that they have to share with us in terms of meeting the needs of all students, whether it's our more involved students or just some strategy or software that they may be using. So I'm I'm Zooming with the directors on Wednesday morning to get some information and share some information with them. In terms of out-of-district students, all the students that we have placed out of district in different school settings, they are all engaged in distance learning through those schools that they're placed in. They have their own programs that they're following. So they are all still actively engaged in the learning process, which is great. And the special ed team, we're continually monitoring student progress. We're taking feedback from students and parents and teachers. And we'll continue to make any necessary adjustments that we need to make as we go along. It's a learning process for us all. We've been open to all sorts of different suggestions. We're in great partnership with the general ed teachers. They've been phenomenal in supporting special ed students through this process. They understand that in this format, we still have to try and implement all those accommodations in the IEP that are there in terms of extended time or a different level of reading, whatever the accommodations are in an IEP. Teachers are doing a phenomenal job of supporting those students and meeting their needs through the distance learning. So I guess that's it for now. That's all. Open to questions. I'll answer any questions that you have.
It's great. Just to expand the context just a little, because Bill's being a bit humble, but where other districts really did allow the unknown to sort of freeze them, Bill and his staff really said, we don't know the answer yet, but let's figure it out, and jumped right in and said, we want to do the best we can for every one of our kids. And that they began delivering on that immediately in this. So really impressive, as all of it is. Carl, did I see your hand go up? Go for it.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the brief. Thanks for all that work. And I imagine that is a special challenge in these times, serving those children and those students. So thanks for that great work. Have you, similar to what we heard among the general ed population, have you heard feedback from students themselves or students' parents about how things are going, how things could be improved, what they like, what they might need more help with?
Yes, we've got some very positive feedback. Their parents are extremely pleased with the ability for the special ed teachers to continue to support students and for TAs to continue to support students. I think some of the concerns in large part mimic some of the concerns that were in the general ed in terms of the pacing of the work. You know, and I think that the schedule changes that have been put in place will help to address that for special education students as well. You know, those have been the primary areas where, you know, if it's taking general education students who don't have a learning difference longer to be able to read or to do the video part of the assignment, in some cases it's taking special education students even longer to do the work. You know, so the pacing has been the primary concern. You'll continue to monitor with these changes. Let's see what happens this week. And, you know, if we need to do some further, you know, adjustment, then we can certainly do that. And teachers are open to it in terms of you know, adjusting work as needed for students and supporting those students. You know, but we'll take a look again at the schedule and how things are working at the end of the week as a cabinet and then with the administrators and the buildings. And, you know, if we need to make any further adjustments, we can.
Others? Okay. I think that's appropriate wait time. Oh, maybe not. Katrina?
I was just getting ready, but
Okay.
I'll add a special thank you. The same comments I made about, you know, the teachers applies to our special ed teachers as well. It's just been, you know, phenomenal to see, you know, just how positive you all are. And I know the same goes for your staff. So thank you for all you're doing and for working through a lot of the added challenges that you're facing.
So if it's all right, I'll take a minute or two just at a high level and hit a couple of things that we're thinking about, working on, what the state's talking about, all of those external pieces. But before I do, you know, years ago, I read a book called Defining Moments. Great little book. It was part of my program at TC. And essentially what it says is that we are taught to look in our lives and look for defining moments. And it says, don't look, just all the little decisions you make in the course of your life will, if you make them with consistency and make them based on values and beliefs, that when those defining moments come, you won't even necessarily notice them. They're no different than everything else that you're doing, and everything will flow consistently based on the values and beliefs that you express in all of the little decisions that you make all through your life. And about a month ago, the team that you just heard from, all of us, I think, were faced with a defining moment where, you know, I had talked with our health director, I had talked with Mike Handler. We sort of looked at what was going on in the world, what was happening in China, what was starting to happen just barely in Europe. We saw the shutdowns and things, and the five of us got together and we said, look, this is what's going on. Can we get ready? And can we do it in 2 weeks? And every single person you just heard from, their first answer was yes. They all led with yes to get this done. And, you know, as Bill mentioned it and Jill mentioned it, you know, all of us mentioned it. We want everything to be perfect, but we can't strive for perfection in this. But what we can strive for is excellence. And I do think that our program is delivering that excellence there. You know, we can't let the great be the enemy of the good. Lots of cliches we can use, but ultimately it's about getting it done on behalf of kids. And that wasn't necessarily the common experience in other districts statewide. You know, it's really, really hard to do what we're doing. But by just getting in there and saying, yes, we can do this, let's figure it out, and having the faith and the confidence and the strength to do that has really made a world of difference. To think that we're well over a week into our distance learning program already, we're already moving into phase 2, where the majority of the state just had day 1 today. Really is a big testament to what we're doing. And we're continuing to, again, sort of make decisions based on our understanding of today and plan for our anticipation of tomorrow. And again, I'm so grateful for the EOC. I'm so grateful that I'm on the calls every morning at 8 a.m. We get on, we report out, we talk together, problem solve as we need. The partnership with Jen in the health department and Mike and Kevin is on those EOC calls every morning, as well as is Leon and Jack from the fire department and Fred Baker, and just people from all different domains of service and responders. It makes such a difference to have everyone in that meeting every morning, talk about what's happening, problem solve, and then move on. And Mike, of course, runs it as an incident command type structure throughout the meeting. So the information changes so quickly. So I'll give you an update briefly on the conference call that I had just prior to this meeting with the governor and his staff, and then talk a little bit about the CAPS conference call as well. I mean, everyone here, we've been, it's probably 4 to 6 hours a day of conference calls with different folks. So I'll run through a couple of things, but again, glad to answer any questions as we go. The governor today announced that he was closing schools until at the earliest April 20th. So they're mirroring the date that we put out a couple of days ago, thinking that, given all that's happening, not comfortable necessarily going further than that, but thinking that we want people to know what the expectations are so we can build the systems around it. Again, a classroom replacement program is very different than a distance learning program. So helping to move people into that. That was the primary thing from the governor. There's been a donation in the state of 60,000 laptops for Alliance districts. So that won't directly impact us, but I think it shows how people in the state are really mobilizing around the educational efforts for all kids. They are going to talk about how they distribute those out. In our Southern Fairfield County, we do have the urban districts of Norwalk, Stamford, Bridgeport, and we've all been talking and sharing best practices, and there are amazing things happening across the state. But that donation will make a big difference for kids, I'm sure. At CAPS, what we really worked with Tom Mooney to look at the commissioner's request, to look at 4 different areas. One was grading, which we talked about. Another was our non-tenured teachers. So do we move the timeline? It's a May 1 timeline for notification for a non-renewal. Should that timeline change? Should the procedure or process change? And Tom developed some recommendations that CAPS will bring forward to the commissioner based on that. Another question is around graduation requirements for high school students. For right now, it's 20 credit minimum. We have our policy that talks about the minimum graduation requirements for students. The state statute is pretty specific about 4 credits of English and the social studies credits, the math, the science, and how it all flows down. The local boards of ed can determine if a distance learning program can be credit bearing, essentially, can be worth credit for students towards graduation. So over the next day or 2, I will get to you a draft policy that we can discuss through a quick governance meeting or a workshop meeting in that regard, that we'd want to take action on pretty quickly. We do currently give credit for online courses, but this being as unique and different as it is, could use an amendment to the policy or a new policy. And I have one from Shipman and Goodwin to begin consideration of. Again, this was my 3:30 call prior to my 5 o'clock call with the commissioner. So everything is hot off the press, at least. The last piece is about the use of all staff. I think one of the things that the time that we had to prepare really helped us do well is engage all of our staff in their work. So our PE teachers are still teaching. They're creating amazing videos. They're hilarious, they're engaging, they're fun. Our art teachers are teaching, our music teachers are teaching. They're all engaged in doing this work. But we're looking at, is there another way, and Jen, this goes back to your question before about illness and what happens. If we do have, something happens with a teacher and if they do become ill, or some of them do, are there ways that we can fast track TAs to be able to step in and begin teaching those classes through certification or other things with the state? We might have some teaching assistants who really are excellent teachers who either are with us now because they're looking for a teaching job, or we just feel they know the kids, they've been working with the class, and maybe they'd be the right ones to move up into that role for a period of time. So we're looking to make some recommendations to the commissioner around that as well, just as another option in our planning and in our thinking about the potential future. Also looking at, is there a way we can fast track cross endorsement for teachers? So if something happens with a teacher in a certain grade, can we look at maybe some of our ancillary teachers and see if they have some credits, any credits towards something, temporarily move them over, give them the certification to be able to teach in those areas instead, in order to backfill some possible illness and things for teachers in the major content areas. As I'm saying this, the cabinet hasn't heard this either. This is all, again, just brand new, and the things that we're talking about at CAPS and at the state level. Here locally, we have members of our school psychologists, social workers who have joined Jackie DeLuey in the town on sort of a emotional intelligence mental health team. They had their first meeting. They put together some information and some guidelines. And so Susan Bliss and Danielle and a couple of others are in those meetings and having those conversations, not because there's a significant need now that's unfilled, but to get the structure in place for the future should there be a need. Of course, when we threw it out there, Danielle and Jill just, their hand shot right up. They wanted to be right involved with that. We're also using our nurses to help out in the health department. They're helping over with Jen and the team to call some of the more vulnerable seniors in town and just make sure that they are okay. Do they have the food they need? Do they have the support they need? What can we do to try to help them through what's going on? In the communications that we've had with the town, it's been incredibly impressive how volunteers have come forward and the town is looking and mobilizing, matching up seniors with volunteer and really doing it one-to-one, so that you minimize the contact that way, right? So it's the same person who will go and do some shopping for a senior and bring it to that senior, leave it on the doorstep and do that. Walter Stewart and others in town, Acme, have been great partners through all of this too. Dr. Keating mentioned before about the food and thinking about if those needs expand, and they may. We've already spoken with the town about, well, first off, we have the most successful restaurant in town in our schools, right? So if we had to do something for the community, we have the equipment, we have the means, and we can pull it together relatively quickly and help the community in that regard. So our nurses will also be placing some phone calls and working with the health department beginning tomorrow with the testing that's happening over at Saks. So we had the testing on Friday for the first day, for the first time. And as you know, people have to go online and work through a protocol in order to be scheduled for a test. The Saks and the whole facility there is what it's called POD, I think it's point of distribution. And that's part of the town's emergency management planning. It's run quite well. Friday, they tested those that they could. Today, they did it again. Tomorrow, they're planning to do it again, I believe. And we're ready to support and help out when that happens by providing power out there, Wi-Fi access so that they can do what they need to do as quickly as possible. To be clear though, there's absolutely no entry into the building by anyone testing or doing the testing or being tested. So the building is completely locked. Any access to the building is only through the front door, and only employees have that access to get through the front door. That being said, they ran it very professionally. It was Officer Deek was there, and Officer Lambert has been around the buildings and other things. And they really are running this very sensitive to the needs to keep it separate from the school building itself. I guess the last thing, the police, again, have been great partners in this. Captain DeFederico today even said if we need the SROs to be involved with our school to do some health checks or anything else with kids, all we have to do is ask and they can do it right away for us. So keeping that relationship there and those services there. So I'll pause for a second and see if anybody has any questions. At the state level, again, the move to April 20th is helpful. We know that we have some decisions as a board to talk through, which include the graduation requirements. Ultimately, the grading piece. I do think we should, not tonight, but consider the April break and what makes this most sense around an April break in the world that we're in, where really people are being urged not to travel, not to leave their homes. So is there a way to sort of create a hybrid with that time around the holiday that makes sense for people, but still keeps enough of a rhythm to what we're doing? So I think we talk about that in the future, but we'd want to take a action on that. And I guess it's important to note that back in the beginning of all of this, the state was asking districts to put in a waiver. And the waiver essentially would say that we are certifying that to the best of our ability, we're providing a continuity of educational services in all domains for all kids, so that we believe these days should count as school days. We were approved for that waiver, in part because before the teachers or students even went out, before we had to close schools, we met with the presidents of each of the unions in our district and talked through what was about to happen. This was the afternoon of the close. And they agreed, and Katrina, you were with us, they agreed that they would honor their commitment to the district to be available to do the work that needs to be done, to continue in whether it's their work, like the food service continuing to pack the lunches, or our drivers delivering, or the custodians doing their work, or we don't know, other things may come up. TAs are doing things like calling homes, checking in with kids, supporting the work. Like, those are things we haven't done before, but in this environment, we have to problem solve creatively. So they agreed to fulfill their commitment. We agreed to fulfill ours in the contract. And having that in place right from the beginning meant that everyone was fully engaged in doing this work, getting it off the ground, and doing everything we have to do on behalf of kids. And to his credit, I want to let you know that I also had a conversation with Kevin Moynihan as we were just going into this. And really, he's just very clearly said, do what's best on behalf of New Canaan's children and students, and we're in this together, and we'll figure it out. And that was really exactly what we needed to hear as a school district from the first selectman, in order to feel like we were empowered to make the right decisions and keep moving things forward. So really all came together. It shouldn't surprise anyone, right? This is who we are as a district, and I think that it really came through and showed. This is a defining moment for us, although we didn't know it at the time, 3.5 or so weeks ago, when we said, yeah, we can do this. But certainly, I think that, as you heard, the pride that everyone feels and the work that we're doing truly is transformative. And that's really empowering in lots of ways. So I'll pause. If anyone would like to ask me. Yes, Penny. Oh, you're still on mute. I can unmute you.
Yeah. There,
Yeah.
I'm unmuted now. I was wondering, could you just bring us up to date with what's happening with the budget process? Because we still do need to get that in place for next year.
Yeah. So the governor, I think he's up to maybe I now or beyond that, his executive orders. But in an executive order, the governor did relax the timelines for municipal budgets. So I know there's conversation occurring between the town council and the Board of Finance around process a bit. We are, I believe, tentatively scheduled to speak with the town council later this week. In truth, all of our bandwidth has been absorbed by everything that we've been talking about, as you can imagine. But the goal is to continue moving through the budget process, I believe, at a relatively similar timeline that had been laid out, although I am hearing that there's some request for the budget to go back to the Board of Finance for them to review it again, given the circumstances of where we're in. As Joanne mentioned, there are savings in the district because of what's happening. Again, not occupying the building, everything being on setback between the electricity, heat, other things like that. We don't know how it's all going to kind of wash out. But I know that there's certainly some anxiety over the situation that the town is in. And Katrina, I know you've had some conversations with folks, if there's anything to add.
No, I don't really have anything to add other than what you said. There is some conversations about the Board of Finance issuing kind of an update on their guidance. I haven't heard for certain if that's taking place, but the goal was to have something before Thursday. So I'll let everybody know as we continue to receive new information.
Do we have a sense as to sort of what the rationale for revising the guidance for next year would be? Is the idea that this year is going to be lower, we're going to have a reforecast? I mean, you could sort of envision a scenario where we're analyzing numbers between now and September, just based on all the impacts. So do you have a sense as to what the town council and Board of Finance are thinking in terms of revised guidance? I'm not sure why we would do that at this point in the cycle.
I think it's more just thinking carefully about additional costs that the town would have to consider. in light of the current situation, whether it be for medical equipment or, related expenses specific to COVID-19. And also just the fact that the Board of Finance made a decision, made their decision right before all of this started to happen. So I think they're just trying to be thoughtful and decide, what the best way forward is as a town. And I think there is some intention to try to, stay with the business as usual approach and continue our work forward, but knowing that there is the opportunity to extend the timeline should we need it. So I don't know specifically. There's been different opinions about whether or not our Thursday meeting should continue. So I'll let you know as soon as I hear something.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts or questions about anything that you've heard tonight? I know we have lots and lots of questions, but any questions maybe we can answer. Okay. Oh, Carl's back. Hold on. I have to find you here. Here you go. You're on.
Well, it's great to hear everyone's voices and see everyone's faces. And, people talked about having like Zoom meetings with friends, et cetera. And so to apply that, to our kids, I think the more opportunities to use meeting technology to get the students together among themselves and in particular with their teacher, would be great. One thing that I saw that was really awesome is Augustin writing a lot of poems in his class because they're doing a poetry unit, and all the kids comment on one another's poems. So, to the extent that you can get the kids interacting like that with their kids, with their fellow classmates and their teachers, I think is great. And to bring, visual technology into it to let people communicate live, I really encourage that in the classroom. And thank you very much for all the work.
Yeah, one of the things I'm excited about is by changing the schedule, we built in professional learning time for our staff. So whether it's the K-8 on the after school with the half day that they have, the high school every day during that reading block for kids, the teachers are going to be engaged in professional learning. I think we're going to see some really amazing things. We already have seen amazing things, but I think these are folks that really, they take an idea and they run with it. They're very proud of what they do and it shows. And, they learn from each other. They learn from the kids and what have I think stay tuned. We're going to see some really creative uses of technology over the next couple of weeks.
And actually I also told my kids, like my ninth grader, when he's talking about having to adapt to this new style. And I was like, look at it as a challenge. You have to absorb information and do things in different ways throughout your life. And this is an opportunity to figure out a new way of absorbing information and learning. So I encourage all the students in that way. And for us parents, it's been, a glass half full kind of guy. So it's an opportunity to engage more deeply with our kids and their work and try to backfill by providing that live instruction in support of our teachers. So encourage all the parents to do that and enjoy it.
You're here. Great. Katrina, it's all yours.
All right. So
Thank you.
is there a motion to adjourn? Deanna, second. Penny, all in favor? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats everyone on our first virtual meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you all.
Well done. Thank you, Brian.
Everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a wonderful night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.